Hey everyone, welcome back to the PAC-South podcast. It is New Year's Eve. Football has already started, and we've had a great bowl season thus far. Amazing games, weird games. It's given us everything that bowl season has. The People's National Championship has already occurred. Shout out BYU for killing a couple Pop Tarts and one that decided to opt out of the ceremony.
Yeah,
I'm hypothetically speaking, it was probably the best Pop Tart that was on the stage that day. Pat, what has been your view of everything bowl season so far?
yeah. I think we've had a pretty good bowl season. We've had a few games that kind of got away from it. Western Michigan blew out. Who did they play?
Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State. That's right, Kennesaw State. That did not age well for me there with my Owls pick.
I rode with you. I was like, yeah, Kennesaw State's kind of had like that dream of destiny year. I should have stuck with Western Michigan since I've like gone with them the whole year. But yeah, I mean they played great in an 11 a.m. game on the
Yeah,
teal turf.
Myrtle Beach Bowl, baby.
Uh,
But I think most of the games have been super competitive and kind of everything that you could ask for from what bowl season is now, I guess, is the best way to phrase it. Where, um, unfortunately, unless you are somebody who really loves college football or a fan of some of these teams, I feel like a lot of the bowls that used to get way more attention are kind of getting swept under the rug. Just look at like last night with the Alamo Bowl. That used to be a huge bowl, really, really big deal for the teams playing in it. And now it's kind of just like an afterthought that was thrown on. I think it had like a 8:45 or 9 o'clock kick. Um, Turned out to be a great game between TCU and USC, with TCU's backup leading a heck of a drive to win that game in overtime. But I think we've had a really great bowl season, super entertaining. Um, what would you say, TJ, has been maybe not like the best in terms of competition, but the best bowl from an entertainment perspective, or maybe you look at it from competition perspective?
oh man, I have an answer for both of these easily. I think. And if you follow us on Instagram, you'll kind of know what my answer would be from an entertaining standpoint. The game on December 30th, so at the time of recording yesterday, um, Coastal Carolina and Louisiana Tech put on an absolute stinker in the Independence Bowl. Um, I feel like the game was very Shreveport because I feel like that bowl itself is very memed because it's like,
Oh yeah,
oh, Independence Bowl, good name recognition, usually quality football games in that. Um, it's just in Shreveport, Louisiana, which trying not to put too much against Shreveport, Louisiana. However, it's Shreveport.
well,
Um, that game had 25 penalties. I believe decline penalties do not go into that count. So it probably would have broken a bowl record if everything was taken. It was brutal. Like Coastal dominated up till halftime, and you could say into the third quarter, Louisiana Tech didn't have a pulse. And then you get halfway through the third quarter, penalty flags really started flying at that point. I don't know if we went more of 4 plays without a penalty flag being thrown. We had long replays. It was just kind of a disaster. I don't know exactly how long the game was. It had to have been 5 hours. That's surely what it felt like. But Louisiana Tech, nonetheless, comes back, ends up getting a two-score win by the end of it. Um, Nasty game, but like honestly, it was kind of just so nasty. It was very comical, and I was laughing my way through it. So Independence Bowl, I think, is my entertainment factor. When it comes to an actual game, though, as much as it hurts because it went against my pick, uh, the Rate Bowl with New Mexico and Minnesota, I thought was just an amazing game. You have Minnesota go up late, they get a 2 point conversion, and it's kind of like, well, New Mexico hasn't really been able to do much on offense. They only had two field goals up to that
yeah.
point. Well, they ran the kickoff back. So then we had a tie game. So it was very fun in that sense. We go to overtime 14-14. New Mexico held to a field goal, which is drilled. And then Minnesota gets the ball. And I cannot remember if it's third or fourth down. I think it's third down. Um, Third down, Drake Lindsay kind of throws it like not sharply, but like well enough. There's a Lobo defender right there, just missed it. Gopher diving catch touchdown to walk it off for Minnesota. So for me, kind of heartbreaking for my pick and just kind of fandom. But Minnesota, that was an amazing way to end bowl season. PJ Fleck continues his random domination of bowl games at Minnesota.
Yeah.
So, we're rowing the boat on something there. So those are my two picks, Pat. I don't know if you have uh, quite as strongly opinionated picks as those.
Yeah, I would say I'll do competition first. From a competition perspective, I'm going to go with the game that I actually already mentioned, which is last night's Alamo Bowl between TCU and USC. It was a little sloppy in terms of like offensive execution for both teams at points, but it was a really close game. It went into overtime. It looked like TCU might be dead after they took a sack that backed them into pretty long field goal range. And then their running back just goes ahead and breaks like 4 tackles on his way to a 35-yard touchdown on like a little screen pass that they were clearly just trying to get into better field goal position on.
Right.
But, sometimes that's the way it works out. We know that's been a problem for Lincoln Riley defenses, whether it's at USC or at Oklahoma, is their ability to tackle in the open field against physical runners. And comes back to bite them again. They lose a bowl game. Because of it. And really, I just thought that was a great game between the two programs, two teams that don't really play each other very frequently in TCU, which is, I guess, still kind of in that upstarty category. They are in the Big 12 now. They made that run to the national championship. But I think a lot of people still don't associate TCU with like a powerhouse program.
Yeah.
And then in terms of entertaining, I'm going to go with a Christmas Eve matchup between Hawaii and Cal. The Rainbow Warriors looked dead in that game, only to come back and just totally pull it out of their butts. JKS finally had one of those performances that we've kind of been looking for all season out of him. Unfortunately for him, it kind of dried up a little bit in the second half. Defense wasn't really there in the second half, and Hawaii gets an awesome bowl win in their home stadium.
Yeah, very, very true. Something I want to note: Pop-Tarts Bowl is not included because both teams did it, but I'm pretty sure that every team that has done a specific helmet decal to their bowl game has lost when the other team did not. Hawaii did not do any special decal for the Hawaii Bowl, basically a home game for them. It was. Cal did the tribal bear on the helmet and lost that game. And I'm forgetting there was another game as well that had a what do you call it? A like special helmet. I'm blanking on it now. And then obviously the Pop Tarts Bowl, everyone put sprinkles everywhere. Very fun. That's a great bowl game. We may get into like next week our like Mount Rushmore of like non-power bowl games because like that's got to be on every list really. So
yeah, shout out to Pop Tarts. They do an amazing job marketing that thing, making it an entertaining watch for people who might not even be huge college football fans.
Yeah, I mean that is just that is pure entertainment too. And that was a very good game as well.
Yeah.
It just I don't know, we've had such a great pick of bowl games this season, and us talking about the Pop Tarts Bowl, maybe we should not forget a game that's still coming up and we will pick later. But the Duke's Mayo Bowl has started that kind of unhinged trend, you could say, for some
Yeah.
of those bowl games. So, got to give Duke's Mayo their flowers as well. All right, so those are our best games so far. We would be remiss if we did not talk about coaches. We'll start with the hiring. We have Chip Kelly going to Northwestern as an offensive coordinator. This is weird. This is weird. I mean, if we said this 10 years ago that he's going to Northwestern, it's like, oh, okay, so he's going to, pick up, whatever. And it's like offensive coordinator. He's going to be calling plays from a dugout twice a year. Really weird hire. I can't knock Northwestern for it. I mean, Northwestern seems like they're doing the right things as a program. They're kind of building up very slowly as, they've been playing on a practice field that faces a lake the last 2 seasons. The stadium's going to be built. It's going to be great. I mean, they have a bowl win this season with some pretty solid wins along the way. Um, yeah, I mean, like I feel like if you're Northwestern, this is great. If you're Chip Kelly, it's kind of like I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I missing it? Like we both agree it's weird, but like, would you kind of agree that that's the vibe of this whole situation?
Yeah, it's a little interesting to see him take a job like the OC position at Northwestern, where you would think a guy of his offensive pedigree, particularly given what he did at Ohio State last year, might have some better opportunities or offers there. Um, but I don't know. I feel like he's got an opportunity at Northwestern where they'll probably just let him focus on what he enjoys doing, and that's calling plays, right? Like they won't make him do recruiting a ton. They probably won't make him venture much into like NIL and fundraising, things like that. He's just going to be there to call plays. I think it's going to be interesting because if it works, you're going to see Northwestern, a team that's traditionally like a physical offense that just tries to grind you down and runs the ball a lot, probably have a lot more explosive plays next year because of the offense that Chip Kelly is going to bring. So I think it'll be unique from that perspective. We know a Chip Kelly offense can work in the Big Ten because, like I said, it worked pretty well at Ohio State last year. So for Northwestern, I think it's a great hire. And for Chip, probably just trying to get, I guess, people's minds off of the disaster that was this year's Las Vegas Raiders, and the fact that he was fired mid-season by the Raiders. So I think it's just kind of like a little bounce back opportunity for him in a fairly low pressure job. No shade to Northwestern, but it's not like they're expecting a Rose Bowl appearance. Well, I guess that would be a playoff appearance now, but a high bowl, let's say, appearance every single year and things along those lines.
Should we expect, a Northwestern team 6, 7, 8 wins, Chip Kelly's name to be kind of front of the line for any of these like group conferences, like any of their coaches getting poached by powers? Like, should we expect Chip Kelly to pop up in those situations?
I feel like yes, in the instance that they will hire a GM as well, because it's pretty well documented that recently, at least at the end of his UCLA tenure, his time at Ohio State, he's not really super involved in recruiting anymore. And in this era where recruiting is super important and paramount, unless you're hiring a GM that will handle that for him, it might not go as well as he would like it to.
Sure. And on the flip side of things, we have the firing of Clemson offense coordinator Garrett Riley. Um, Obviously, this comes off of the bowl game performance by that offense. You know, Still a pretty good offense. Penn State, who has been under an interim for the season, basically. Um, yeah, I mean, not a great display from Clemson throughout the season. The bowl game was also very disappointing for them. I can't not feel that this is still awkward. I know Clemson fans were not pleased with Garrett Riley throughout the course of the season. Um, you also have your rival who was not pleased with their offensive coordinator. Obviously, much worse results on the
Yeah.
field, but they fired their offensive coordinator. Clemson feeling that way, not playing Clemson football of the last decade. They held on to him through the bowl game. Everyone now has been hired up except pro guys, you could say. If any like pro coordinators would get fired, they go to Clemson. But I feel like this is kind of a very awkward timing. I mean, Michigan worked out the best they could have with getting Kyle Whittingham, who just decided that was enough at Utah, so it worked out. Um, but I mean, Clemson really has a very slim board unless they want to go poach someone who maybe has already been re-upped. I don't know if I agree with this firing with the timing of it. Are you similar sentiment there as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a weird time. I feel like almost it seems like kind of a scapegoat firing in a way. Um, because Clemson fans, Clemson boosters are not happy with the way arguably the last 2 seasons have unfolded. Yes, you got a college football playoff appearance last year, but I think most Clemson fans would tell you 9-3 regular season isn't really what they were hoping for or looking for last year. And they kind of lucked their way into the playoff by beating SMU in the ACC championship.
Mm-hmm.
This year, obviously, we know the disappointment that came with it. And I think Dabo just needed somebody to shift blame onto. Like it's not like the Clemson offense was horrible under Garrett Riley. Obviously, it didn't have the explosiveness that you saw in the Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, part of the Taj Boyd eras.
Sure. Yeah.
But part of that also is kind of tied into the fact that Cade Klubnik never really developed as a passer, I feel like. And that kind of handcuffed Garrett Riley a little bit in terms of what he was able to call, comfortability with offense, things like that. Because, I mean, you saw how well his offense could work with TCU when he led them, or not he, but Max Duggan led them to the national championship in his offense. So I think it is a little bit of like a scapegoat. We need somebody to blame for what's gone wrong the past few years. Let's blame Garrett scenario. And the rumors I've been hearing, obviously, living in South Carolina and hearing a decent amount of chatter and buzz about both Clemson and SC on a fairly regular basis. It looks like Chad Morris is the top candidate to replace him. So former Arkansas head coach, we know how poorly that went. But I think he was at Texas State, I want to say, or Texas Southern, one of the two. It's a TSU, I know that, in 2024. And then he took this year off from coaching to follow his son Chandler at UVA during their season this year, kind of similar to what Will Muschamp did, following his son at Vanderbilt before stepping back into the coaching ranks at Texas. But from what I've seen, Chad Morris is the top option as of right now for Clemson.
Chad Morris was at Texas State.
Okay.
And this would mark approximately, unless I'm getting my years off, 12 years since leaving Clemson for the first time. So obviously familiar territory there for the Tigers if they go that route. But yeah, it should be interesting. I think next year is a very important year for Dabo at Clemson. I mean, obviously we've heard rumblings as well that the fan base is getting annoyed with Dabo because he refuses to really embrace NIL and transfer portal, which you can do that, but it's not college football anymore.
Yeah.
So if you want to be good, you need to adapt, and he's been very slow to adapt. And I don't really think that he cares to appreciate that noise because, I mean, he's won 2 national titles there. So I don't know. I think that if you have another 7-6 year like they did this year, you could see Dabo on the way out from Clemson. So interesting stuff. Garrett Riley, the one on the move this year at least. But those are the coaches that we have for now. I'm sure that we'll have a couple more. We didn't talk about him in full, but Kyle Whittingham to Michigan after we broke the Sharon Moore news that we had at the time when we were recording a podcast a couple weeks ago. Kyle Whittingham, it feels very weird. However, I think if you're a Michigan fan, you just have to be happy that this is what you got in the stage of when the firing occurred, how it impacted the program, to then go get a proven winner, a guy who, I mean, to be honest, outside of, he's Utah head coach and he won a big game, so he said a couple words. You don't really hear a lot about this guy. And I think if you're a Michigan fan, that is the best possible candidate right now. So I think for what they got, Michigan did a really good job with this hiring. Still really weird that he left Utah the way that he did.
Yeah.
In like a pseudo retirement.
Pseudo forced out. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know.
Not a bad year for the Utes either. I mean, they were like 15 or 16.
I think it was one of those deals where like Morgan Scalley's been getting traction from other programs as a head coach, and he's had that like weird coach in waiting title for a few years now at Utah after he came back from his issues. which we will not get into. But he's had that title, and I feel like it was one of those moves where the athletic department kind of pushed Whittingham out so they wouldn't lose Scally. Kind of like a reverse Baltimore Ravens. You know, they refused to push Harbaugh out so McDonald could become the head coach. McDonald goes to Seattle, is thriving. Baltimore has not really had much success this season. So maybe they were trying to do the opposite there. Get some new blood in with Scally, but I think it's a great hire for Michigan. Obviously, Whittingham's not a super long-term solution as a guy who's in his
Sure.
60s, but he's a proven winner. He's going to bring more physicality to that Michigan program. That's like his big thing as a coach. And I mean, at least at this stage of the cycle, I think you could have done a lot worse than Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much could have just been what's his name? Bo Biffman, Biff
Oh,
something.
Biff Poggi, yeah.
Biff Poggi, absolute football guy, legend. But it could have been one of those where he is kind of your interim coach, basically for 1-2 years until really the stars align,
Yeah.
and then you get going, which wouldn't be the best for Michigan because that's not a program that you just want to have like basically on
In
pause
limbo,
for
yeah.
a year or two. So I think Whittingham's great. He should keep this roster intact. I believe Bryce Underwood is pretty happy with it, so I don't think that he will be hitting the portal anymore. Um, so it'd be interesting to watch this Wolverine team next year. I mean, they also, I think it's today, right? Yes, today.
They play, yeah.
In 1 hour, they kick off against
Yeah.
Texas. So we'll be talking about that in just a few moments. Before we get to our predictions, we will head over to a little basketball talk. Once again, if you follow us on Instagram, you will see that we are posting our mid major top 30 rankings. Not Gonzaga, though, because they're too good. Don't like them. Get them out of here. Um, so everyone excluding the Zags is in our top 30 right now. Utah State still our number one, right?
Yeah, yeah. They had a pretty
So
good win last night too. Um,
good Mountain West basketball there. So yeah, so let me let you discuss the rankings more. You have the models and the eyes. But Pat, what are we seeing in basketball right now?
yeah, so for those of you who do follow us on Instagram, obviously we appreciate you guys. For those of you who don't, check us out, give us a follow. We post stuff pretty much bi-weekly at the least. But we have been posting the past, I guess, 2 weeks, 2.5-ish weeks. It gets a
Yeah,
little weird with holidays, but we've been posting a mid-major. We just went with top 30. Top 25 is a little bit, I guess, narrow, especially when you're talking about mid majors, and some of these conferences are pretty deep this year. So what we're doing is we are using data primarily to drive our decisions with these polls. Right, we're taking net rankings, Ken Palm rankings, Torvik rankings, averaging them all out. So obviously your net rankings is kind of what the committee looks at when they're seeding teams. That's your quad one, quad two, quad three, etc. Um, net or sorry, not net. Kempom and Torvik are both more like efficiency based rankings. And then of course we're using the eye test in terms of records, right? Like one of the teams who's been on our top 30 both weeks is San Diego State. They're really, really highly ranked in Ken Palm and Torvik because they have been a pretty efficient team. However, they have 4 losses. So we're not going to rank them above a team like, I don't know, let's say Utah Valley State or Murray State. Actually, I think I do have them over Murray State, but McNeese State, we'll go with them because, again, they have 1 loss or 2 losses in those cases. So it's been a fun ride watching even more mid-major basketball than we usually do, and
Mhm.
kind of keeping our eye on some of these teams. And I think a lot of the teams that feature in that poll you will see come tournament time. I feel like a conference like the Mountain West will probably get like 4-ish teams in. I'm sure the Missouri Valley Conference this year is probably a 2-bid league. We have the A10 on there. They're probably a 2, if not 3-bid league this season because VCU is really good. St. Louis is really good, and George Mason is also really good.
Notable name not on that list is Dayton.
Yeah, Dayton.
Notable
I
name.
mean, they've had a good season, and they are ranked in our rankings.
Mhm.
However, they also have, I believe they're up to four at this point. They also have four losses, right? So they're going to have a really good performance in conference play if they want to make the tournament. And obviously, our rankings don't shape the tournament's ultimate decisions, but move up in our rankings and get a little bit more love from us. But if we look at more major conference teams, I think we have a really, really competitive couple of months ahead of us. You have, I think it's three teams in the top 10 right now that are still undefeated: Iowa State, Arizona, Michigan, who have all looked really, really good. Iowa State, I mean, blew the doors off Purdue when they played. Michigan's blown the doors off literally everybody that they've played. And Arizona has some really, really impressive wins. And then you've got
Yes.
some great one-loss teams right behind them. You've got BYU, you've got Duke, you've got Houston, you've got Purdue. I think we really have a deep, deep year this year ahead of us. And even some of those two-loss or three-loss teams lost early, and now they're starting to get hot, or maybe they were missing some key players at the beginning of the year, and now they're kind of finding their footing a little bit. Um, if you look at Florida, they started off kind of shaky, but Xavier Lee's starting to find it a little bit for them, and Florida's starting to play much more like the team that we saw win a national championship last year, rather than the team that struggled out of the gate this year. So as we head into conference play, all right, so we had some technical difficulties there. My computer decided to show me a blank screen for who knows what reasons, but thanks, Apple. Anyways,
Not a
like we were
sponsor.
talking about, um, we've been having a really entertaining year of college basketball, both in the mid-major ranks and at the top end of competition. So, TJ, what are you kind of, I guess, keeping an eye on, let's say, as we head into conference play?
Yeah, well, as we head into conference play, I look to keep an eye on basketball for once. I've had a really hard time watching games. I've actually watched more women's games than men's. I was able to watch. I don't even remember who they played the other day, but I was able to watch a Bowling Green basketball game just to like give
Yeah.
myself some variety and really dive back into it. So conference play, I look to really get into it. I've been able to keep an overview of it. That being said, this seems like yes, you still have like some of your big name programs, like you mentioned, Arizona, Michigan, who I'll be able to see here in a couple weeks in person. So that would be really nice to see some higher level basketball for Big Ten. And I would say, obviously, those two teams and the conferences with that, the Big Ten and the Big 12, seem to be kind of the front runners this year.
Mhm.
You could say for conferences, SEC appears to take a step back. ACC still kind of not really finding its place. It's really had a hard
Yeah.
time the last couple seasons. Do we see this kind of like weird new SEC still succeed this season, or do you think it will cannibalize itself now that we go into conference play? And does the ACC find its identity again going to the end of the season?
Yeah, I think the SEC is kind of in a weird spot because I wouldn't really say any of your SEC teams this year are like quote unquote elite. I mean, Alabama has played some of these top tier teams and they've gotten beaten by all of them. So it kind of shows that a Bama team that people thought was going to be really good this year is probably not as good as they were the past two seasons. Florida, we talked about, they've kind of been shaky to start the season. I think the SEC is in a position where they're still going to get a decent amount of teams in the tournament, probably in like that 5 to 6 range. Um, However, I think it is going to be a league where you're going to see a lot of competitive matchups in the sense that, Kentucky's had a pretty rough start to the season, but that's still a really talented team. I think they can get up and beat some of the top quote unquote teams in the conference, like Florida. Like, I mean, Georgia's undefeated right now, but they haven't really played anybody. Vanderbilt is the number 11 team in the country right now. So it'll be interesting to see how they play once conference play starts. Things like that, where I think the ACC, they've just got to hope that some of their teams that have started decently in non-conference play can carry that start into ACC play. Like Virginia Tech had a pretty solid non-conference performance, like no oh my gosh wins, but they avoided catastrophic losses. They gutted out some wins over a scrappy South Carolina team in Columbia, over an offensively talented Providence College team, but very defensively challenged. Um, things like that, where you're seeing the ACC not trip over itself too much out of conference, but then you've got a team like Syracuse who is expected to take a stride forward this year. They played halfway decent in Vegas at the Players Invitational during the Thanksgiving, let's say, break or time. And then they lose at home to Hofstra, right? So it's just like,
Ranked,
who are we going to see?
ranked,
Um,
Hofstra, PAC-South ranked.
Ranked in our rankings, yeah. Who are we going to see from the ACC besides North Carolina and Duke and arguably Virginia? Virginia's had a pretty good start to this season as well. Virginia and Virginia Tech are actually, I believe, playing right now at the time of recording. I think they tipped at 2:00 Eastern.
And this can be a bad showing on myself, but is Clemson not having a decent season as well this
Clemson
year?
is having a pretty good year,
I was
yeah.
about to
Yep.
say,
Clemson is,
that program has kind of really built itself up, I felt like, in the last 3 seasons, which is quite
mhm.
remarkable considering that university, how much resources went to football, and that
Oh,
basketball
yeah.
program traditionally not very good. They've been able to turn it around. I forget their head coach's name now, but he's been able to really put his footprint on that program.
Yeah, Brad Brownell's done a really nice job there. I mean, I think he's been there since probably like 2010, 2011, whenever
It's
Oliver
been a
Purnell
while
left.
now.
And he's done a really good job making Clemson a consistent ACC program. And then, I mean, NC State was supposed to be really good coming into this year, and they dropped a few out of conference that kind of made people question how good they really are. Louisville's looked really good this year, but they've also dropped some games against really tough or stiff competition that's made people be like, okay, like, how for real is this team? Their
Hmm.
2 losses this year are both to SEC teams. They lost, I believe it was fairly close. I want to say either by like 7-11 in that general range to Arkansas. Then they lost by 20 plus points to Tennessee. So a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde from Louisville this year. They also did beat Kentucky pretty easily. So I don't know. I think the ACC is a big question mark right now, where they could easily get 6 or 7 teams in. However, they could also find themselves in a predicament where they get 4 or 5 teams in because of, I guess, those upper middle teams, we'll call them, not really being able to set themselves apart in conference play.
Sure. Yeah, should be interesting to watch. I'm definitely looking forward to some mid-major basketball. I love my Lobos, love my Billikens when we get to basketball season. So it should be fun to watch those two programs. Not one, both this season, really contending for a conference title and obviously a trip to the dance. So it should be interesting. But we'll transition back now to our football, as we have football currently going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa and Vanderbilt. I'll give you my pick and then tell you what's going on. I picked Vanderbilt, and Iowa is the only team on the field. I say that Vanderbilt just scored
I
a
was going to say, Vandy did
touchdown
just get a
pass.
touchdown. So,
It has been all Iowa up until that touchdown, really. But
mm-hmm.
Iowa's really commanded this game. It's what's his name? Gronkowski. I can't remember.
Kronowski, yeah.
Gronkowski. Jack Rabbit legend. He's really had a great game, and like the only bad part about his game was a strip sack, and he was able to somehow steal away under the pile, so like saved a possession for the Hawkeyes. So I mean, well, that being said, Vanderbilt's defense really starting to dial in here now. We got a 3rd and long for the Hawkeyes. Could we get a punt and then it's touchdown, 1-score game at that point?
Yeah. And I mean, we're still only like halfway through the third quarter. So
Yes, I believe it's 7.5 or so remaining. Who did you have in this game?
I actually had, up until this weekend when Eli Stowers announced he was not going to play, I had Vanderbilt. But then when Stowers said he wasn't playing, I thought that could create some issues in terms of say like flexibility for. I know Stowers is a tight end, but for the receiving core, at Vandy, so I actually flipped to Iowa, but who knows with Iowa? They're very Jekyll and Hyde, particularly on offense. So they are now facing a fourth and I think 12 or 13. I can't really tell.
Yes.
Um,
Fourth and 13 off of a pass deflection.
yeah. So Vandy's in a position to get right back in this and flip the game on its head a little bit.
Yes. It could be interesting here now. So we flip it, and I will say that's a good flip because in the moments before recording and kind of during our impromptu intermission, I mean, I've seen so many receiver drops for Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Some warranted, some definitely not. I think it may be time to talk about how good Iowa is in Tampa as well. I feel like I've never seen them lose a game there.
Undefeated in Tampa.
Um, so another game that has kicked off, but I don't think has a score. I saw it pop up on
Just
the
not.
bottom.
First and goal, though.
First and
Um,
goal. Okay. So I'll hop right in before anything happens. I don't know who's first and goal. I did take the Blue Devils. I don't think with Arizona State not having Sam Levitt, he's already moving on from the program. If he was able to play or not able to play, whole nother thing. Um, but yeah, Arizona State from last year to this year, definitely a different team. Still not a bad team by any means. But this is a Duke program under Manny Diaz. It has a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence. Um, I don't believe they really have many sit-outs, if any notable, really. Darian Mensah, I believe, has committed to coming back again next year as well. So, like, vibes are high right now in Durham. So, I like the Blue Devils getting it done against the Sun Devils.
yeah, I'm also riding with the Bull City. Throwing my Bull City up here. I'm taking the Blue Devils. It is currently 7-0 Arizona State. They scored on their opening drive with Jeff Sims punching in a 2-yard quarterback run.
This game's in the
But
Sun Bowl, right?
what's that?
This game's in the Sun Bowl, right?
Yeah, it's in El Paso.
That's
Um,
so many Devils going on in this game.
so many Devils.
It's kind of unreal. Anyway, back to you on that little sidebar.
But yeah, Duke's defense has been questionable all year, so I think we could see Jeff Sims have some entertaining moments. I think the Arizona State run game is probably going to find some success, but Jeff Sims is bound to do Jeff Sims things at some point. And I think this Duke offense has really been humming pretty much all season long, but especially against better competition, we'll say, down the stretch run in the ACC. And then, of course, in the ACC championship game against UVA. So I'm going with the Blue Devils. They do have, like you mentioned, Darian Mensah coming back, Cooper Barkate, who is their breakout receiver this year, Harvard transfer. He also announced he's coming back next year. So if they could get a defense that can actually stop somebody, look out for the Blue Devils as a dark horse playoff team next year.
And with the Harvard mention, I got to say this has been a great year for brainiacs in football. I mean, Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman, Gronowski 4.0 with his engineering degree.
Right?
So, I mean, big shout out to brainiacs this year. They're getting it done on and off the field. Harvard, not a bad little football program going on there. Now the
Yeah.
Ivy League has opened up a bit more. Pretty entertaining stuff there. On to the Citrus Bowl now in what could be considered the academic capital of the United States, Orlando, Florida. We have Michigan against Texas. That game kicking off here in just about 30 minutes. Obviously, we have talked slightly in depth about this Michigan team, mainly the coaching issues. Texas, interesting. I don't know how I feel about this Texas team, but I feel better about them than I do Michigan, at least for this game. Now, if this game started next season, I think I would have a whole different interpretation of how this matchup would go. That being said, Texas, at least at the time of the game, will have their head coach still. We'll see what Steve Sarkisian decides to do. It's still a very up in the air situation. Will Muschamp may accidentally become the head coach there after taking the D coordinator. We don't know. He definitely doesn't know. But I like the Longhorns to get it done over the next 3 hours. What happens after this game could be interesting for the Longhorns because it's been, I believe, 2 months now of Steve Sarkisian doesn't really seem to be enjoying Texas right
Yeah.
now. So could be interesting there. But Longhorns today.
Yeah, I'm also going with Texas in this one. I think Michigan as an offense has struggled pretty tremendously when they've played against good defenses this year. Look at what happened against Oklahoma. Look at what happened against Ohio State. And that's kind of your proof right there. So, despite the fact that I think Texas might have like one current running back on the roster, like four of their running backs hit the portal after the season ended, I still do like the Longhorns in this one. But as you mentioned, this is going to be a different Michigan team next year under Whittingham. So more of a circumstances pick than anything.
Okay. Back to back, same picks. We move to the Nebraska Utah game. Uh, this is great matchup. I like these two teams. However, I wish this game happened like the first week of October.
Yeah.
Um, Utah, obviously a new coach. I don't think that'll be as big of an impact for them in this game. Nebraska, however, Matt Rule coming into this with a very depleted roster. Um, Transfers left and right kind of lost their momentum pretty much immediately after he signed that extension. Um, so I can't imagine. It's one of those things where it's like, could this be reverse psychology where the Cornhuskers come in just so down that it lulls the other team to sleep and they steal one in bowl season? Could be. I didn't really think that way initially when I made this pick, so I went with the Utes. Um, this could be also a stinker of a game, I think, when it gets down to it. But Utes will get it done, I think. I think not a lot of confidence here.
Hedging your bets there. Um,
Very much.
I'm also going with Utah in this one. I think regardless of who is going to coach this game, Whittingham already had said, I believe, um, a few weeks prior to the game that he wasn't going to be super involved prior to this bowl. And then obviously getting hired at Michigan required him to step away completely. However, Nebraska is playing a backup quarterback who struggled pretty tremendously in the playtime that he did see. So I do like Utah to get this done. Utah won all of their games not against Texas Tech or BYU this year. So, I've got faith in the Utes to get it done against what is on paper an inferior Nebraska team.
Yes. We then have a lighter game, you could say, in the Armed Forces Bowl between Texas State and Rice. I'm not going to really dive too much into this one other than my early season pick for the Dark Horse playoffs was Texas State. So I'm picking them as their redemption for that. And if not, I am swearing off the Bobcats in Pac-12 play next season.
I also had Texas State as one of my sleepers. I believe you and I both were high on Texas State before the season. One of my other sleepers was UTSA. Both of those did not age very well for me. So
If
as
UTSA
retribution, I'm
never had a
going.
road game, they'd be undefeated this year.
Yeah, seriously. I'm going with the other school from Texas, the Brainiacs, in the year of the Brainiac here, TJ, as you so eloquently dubbed it. Give me the Owls of Rice.
Okay, one owl has to at least win in bowl season, right?
Exactly.
I still can't believe it. I mean that had to have been just Myrtle Beach talking for the Owls in
Yeah.
that one. That
Yeah.
was
Dirty Myrtle gets to you.
it was a very shocking display from the Owls. I mean, on paper that should have been just probably one of the better
Yeah, it should
bowl
have been a really
matchups.
close game.
But I mean, Western Michigan really came out early, hit it quick. The game was over. Speaking of game over, Vanderbilt had a turnover on downs on the 40, leading to an Iowa field goal. That helps, but now a 2-touchdown game for the Commodores. 4 minutes left in that one.
Yeah, and Duke also tied up the game against Arizona State.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of points in this one, I think.
Lot of lot of points. Big fan of the over there in West Texas. Um, West Tennessee now, Liberty Bowl, Navy, Cincinnati. Dude, that might get an Oscar for that transition.
Yeah, that was nice.
Thank you. I've been working on that. Navy versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati losing Brendan Sorsby to the portal, who has been not want to say fully elite, but like a very good quarterback
Very good,
for the
yeah.
Bearcats. I do believe he is tied to Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm. Girlfriend.
Very likely, yeah, that was the tie. That would be a good matchup if he did go there, though. Very similar quarterback play for the Red Raiders from this year to next year if they get Sorsby and go that route. I think that would answer kind of the questions that they need at the quarterback position. That being said, not having the skipper for this one, and also kind of the way they ended the season. This was a ranked team, I believe, beginning of November, and they very quickly found themselves not ranked after that point. And Navy has continued to get better as the season has gone on. We kind of were saying that there may be a paper tiger early in the year. They were undefeated. They had like closer games / bad performances with teams they probably shouldn't have had. But then, I think, what was it? After the North Texas game or South Florida game, I'm blanking on which green team it was. It was a
They
close,
lost.
close loss.
Yeah, they lost to North Texas but beat USF.
Okay. But yeah, so after that point, it was kind of like, oh, okay, they're really gaining steam, momentum. And it's kind of like they needed that loss to really harden up. And they did, and they get the win against Army. Good year all around for the midshipmen, and I like them to get the win in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, I'm also taking Navy here. My caveat all year on Navy games was if Blake Horvath was playing, I liked Navy. If he was not, like he didn't in part of the North Texas game and all of the Notre Dame game, definitely give me the opposition. He is playing against Cincinnati, and by that logic, I'm backing the Mids.
Yes. All right. Lots of similar picks. 5 out of 7 so far. No. Yes. No. I don't know. I can't count. 5 of 6. 4 of 6. All right. Arizona SMU. This is again an interesting matchup. You kind of look Arizona counterpart Arizona State. Arizona being kind of the better program this season.
Yeah.
Very impressive what they were able to do on the offensive side of the ball. I would say SMU definitely a letdown in what was a wide open ACC. I kind of expected them after they did get to the playoff last year to make a back-to-back run at it. Just inconsistent performances really hurt the Mustangs this year. They do get a good win against Miami, who ends up being a playoff team and a quarterfinalist. Yeah. But all in all, they didn't get the wins that they needed to get when they needed it. I think that this Arizona offense is going to be very good and probably the best that SMU has seen all year. And I don't think that defense is going to be able to answer those questions. So I like the Wildcats, and this one could get ugly. I think if Arizona's defense shows up properly, I like the Wildcats big.
I also like the Wildcats. I think it'll be close, but I just don't really trust SMU's defense to successfully force them off the field. Really, their only strong defensive performance this year against a high quality offense was the Miami game, which they sort of miraculously pulled off. Still not really sure how their defense played that well in that football game, but I think it'll be a high scoring game. Arizona's defense struggled at points this year as well. I know it particularly in like the Kansas State game, they kind of looked a little bit shaky, and almost let Kansas State back in to win that game. Things like that are question marks or are problems. They didn't play great against Iowa State, so I think there's going to be points on both sides. Kevin Jennings has quietly had a really good year again this year for SMU, but I do think the Wildcats are just a little bit deeper than the Mustangs, and that's why I'm going with them.
Okay, another same pick there. We have a close play, great catch, just out of bounds for the Commodores as they are trying to answer back and get within a score. To the second People's National Championship game, the Dukes Mayo Bowl in Charlotte, Mississippi State versus Wake Forest. Um, I can't decide if this is a good matchup, weird matchup, or bad matchup. These are two teams that have had glimpses of like playing really good games, and they have what one could market as a couple great losses. Mississippi State, that game against Texas that they absolutely should have won. Wake Forest losing in heartbreaking fashion by a point to Georgia Tech. Both would have changed the narrative of their season to great versus this okay
Yeah.
season. I mean, for these programs, good seasons. Um, but nonetheless, they come on the far or on the wrong side of the ball on those matchups. Um, I'm kind of basing this just off of travel and like availability. I like Wake Forest just to get it done. It's a little bit closer to home for them. I just don't see enough on paper and like in results that really differs so much that I feel strongly about one team or another. This this is going to be probably a close game as well. After I just said that the last one was a blowout. Um, but yeah, I'm taking the Demon Deacons on the fact that they don't have to leave their own state. That's kind of where I'm at with this
Yeah.
game.
I am actually going to go with Mississippi State here. The only reason I'm taking Mississippi State is actually because Wake Forest's best offensive player, Desmond Claiborne, is not playing in this game. I believe it was like the beginning of this month, right around the ACC championship game. He announced he was going to declare for the draft and do sort of side prep or side workouts to get himself ready for that process. So with that, the fact that both Robbie Ashford and their other quarterback, I think it's Hank Bachmeier, have sort of struggled this year. I just don't see them getting the offensive production that they need against a team in Mississippi State who we know can score points. They just sort of struggle to stop the opponent from scoring. So I think they will get enough stops where they actually do come out with a victory and turn a 5-7 season into a 6-7 season with a bowl win.
Okay. SEC desperate to get that bowl win there.
Need that.
They
Need
have been
that.
having a rough go of it lately. Speaking SEC, Vanderbilt has scored a touchdown. They've brought it back to one score with 134 remaining in the third quarter. Now, on to our playoff games. The first quarter final that I guess is going down the list. Yes. We have Miami against Ohio State. This game being played in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, I'm still not thrilled, impressed that Miami is here. Yes, they did win in College Station. However, if it was not for one of the largest, not one of the largest loss or blown lead in SEC history, a 4-8 South Carolina team would also have been winners in College Station. So, not really saying a lot to me. I feel like at this point in the season, Texas A&M had a rough go at the end of the year. Yes, they still had an amazing regular season and 11-1 finish. Nothing to hold your head down on, but they were definitely losing steam going into that game. Miami does just enough, literally, to win that one. That being said, Ohio State has been here very frequently last year, winning the national title, the experience, overall just better team, better consistent play. I like the Buckeyes getting it done.
I think this is going to be my only controversial pick of our playoff
Is it pass
segment.
interference?
It is, yeah.
2002. The
um,
Buckeyes benefited from that. Anyway,
I don't know why. I just have a weird feeling about Ohio State this year. I know I said it prior to our Big Ten championship pick when I picked Indiana to beat them in the Big Ten championship that I was kind of getting last year Oregon vibes from this Ohio State team where they were kind of just rolling through the regular season. They are, I believe, the odds favorites to win the national title
Yes.
headed into the playoff. And then you see a team that's on paper not as good as them, right? Like on paper last year, Ohio State was obviously a very elite team and better than this Miami team, but they were viewed as worse than Oregon, especially since they played each other in the regular season last year. Oregon won. I don't know why. I'm just kind of getting a similar vibe this year from this Ohio State team that they're just not going to withstand, I guess, the heat that comes with the playoff and the added pressure. Obviously, Ryan Day finally got the monkey off his back last year by winning the national championship and quieting the noise around his job. I think that noise is going to ramp back up because I am throwing up the U and I'm going with the Canes.
Okay.
Shout out Michael Irvin.
He's got that dog in him. Yeah, I mean I see your logic there. I think part of why I don't feel this is Ohio State's game to lose at this point in time. I don't. They're not really my natty pick, but I don't think they lose this one. Kind of on the sheer fact of the formula last year to this year, they get beat by Michigan going into the playoffs. They get beat by Indiana going into the playoffs. So this team kind of has that chippiness now again
Yeah,
of tasting a loss and going to sucks. Let's really ramp it up because all these games matter now.
I think it's crazy. Like, obviously, I'm picking Miami, but even if I didn't make that pick, I do think the spread's a little wild for this one. 9.5, pretty comfortably the biggest spread of all the games. And I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit generous towards Ohio State. I'm not sure. Obviously, you picked Ohio State, TJ. So do you think Miami will cover that spread, or do you like Ohio State by 10 plus?
Um, yeah, I think Miami does cover that. Although I think Ohio State will have their way in this game, I think it's going to be kind of like, in a sense, like an NFL like dominant victory, where it's like,
Yeah, yeah. Maybe not scoreboard dominant,
yeah,
but
it's like a 10 point
really,
game throughout like the whole time, and then like you get kind of like a late field goal, late touchdown from Miami to
yeah.
keep it one score at the end. I feel like I would put this probably more around like 7.5 personally.
Mm.
But that's why we talk about it and we don't make it. Um, Going now 1 versus 9, a shock that I don't think most people outside the state of Alabama saw coming. Alabama beats Oklahoma on the road, and they get the honor of playing Indiana uh, in this matchup. So Tide and Hoosiers, I have to go with the hot hand. I have to go with Indiana. Um, I say hot hand. Yes, Alabama just won last week. They are the hot hand technically. However, the overall vibe of Indiana, the only undefeated team this year, you have the Oregon team last year, who was the only undefeated team. Does not feel like the same vibe. Indiana, you kind of saw and felt like the only other playoff team that was on their schedule last year. They beat by 2 points at home, and that was Boise State. This Indiana team, they went on the road to a playoff team in Oregon this year and got it done. They also played a neutral site game against the number 2 seed in Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. They got it done, so they are proven winners of big games. This game is being played, let's see, in the Rose Bowl. I don't know, Hoosiers. I like them. Signetti's got me believing. I'm going to see about the national title thing. We'll get there when we get there. But this this round, I like Indiana. I think they'll look really good.
Yeah, I also like Indiana in this game. I'm just really not convinced in Alabama, regardless of the fact that they beat um, Oklahoma in the first round in a game that Oklahoma definitely should have won. I know we didn't really do like a full breakdown of the first round playoff games, but I think really the decisive moment in that game was, I think it was like a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, where Mateer ducked out of a corner blitz, broke a tackle, and he had a choice: either throw, looked like sort of a post, to a running back, or run for the first down. If he runs, he's got probably like 15 to 20 yards. he has an open receiver. He throws it right on his hands. The receiver drops it, and from there on, it was all Bama. I just don't see Indiana making those same types of mistakes and letting Alabama have those windows. Um, like you mentioned, Indiana is a really good team this year. They went on the road. They beat Oregon. They beat Ohio State, two very talented football teams. Um, and yes, we've seen flashes from Alabama, but I don't think we've really seen them put it together successfully in like a full picture
Mm-hmm.
moment, I guess you could say. So give me Indiana here.
Okay. Uh, Coming out of the FBF playoffs and going to the FCS championship game, a full-on David versus Goliath here. Illinois State on a wonderful Cinderella run, upset win, most well known as the North Dakota State game. They were down, I'm pretty sure 13 points
Mm-hmm.
with I believe 4 or 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns in that time to win in regulation and to knock out the Bison from the playoffs. They then obviously eventually make it their way to the national championship game where they play against a team that we talked about last week and a couple times throughout the season, Montana State. Great season. This is a program that has continued to grow each and every season. I believe they do have a national title in the last couple of years. Obviously, the Dakotas have kind of held it. They're
Yeah.
trading it back and forth as essentially a second Dakota marker. But I mean, this Bobcat team is good. We talked with the Montana game rematch. Montana State really just manhandled that game, you could say. I think, unfortunately, for Cinderella, uh, we are hitting midnight, and I like the Bobcats to win the FCS national championship.
Yeah, I'm with you there, TJ. I feel like Montana State has won. I know they've been to like 3 of the past 4. I think the only year they haven't been recently is 2023. National championships, I feel like they might have won one of those. But regardless, I think it's been a great story for Illinois State. They've been playing some really awesome football, some really entertaining football down the stretch here. Really good win against Villanova to get them into the national championship. But I just think from a talent perspective, Montana State does have an edge. And yes, you could have said that about North Dakota State as well. I think they were pretty comfortably the favorites to win the FCS national championship this year before they lost to Illinois State. But I don't know. I don't see Lightning striking twice. And I think if Montana State gets out to a lead, they're going to do everything in their power to not let what happened to North Dakota State happen to them.
Okay. Montana State national champions 1984. Same year as BYU for the FBS. Runners up in 21 and 24, both times to the Bison. So Montana State probably very happy that Illinois State is here and not the Bison. Back to the FBS playoffs. We have the Sugar Bowl matchup between Georgia and Ole Miss. Random note, maybe not random because it's definitely helped me push forward to my pick. I was already leaning this direction, but I fully made the pick because of that. There is a certain aircraft of a certain NFL team that a team
Did see that.
Mexico used to go to their bowl game. New Mexico lost the bowl game. There's another team that this plane is taking, and that is Ole Miss. I don't know what that says for the Patriots in their playoffs. However, it currently does not have a lot of wins under its belt for bowls, and I don't think it'll continue that way. I was already leaning Georgia. Obviously, Ole Miss having the close win in Athens. No, wrong. Close game. It was a great game. Great game. Both teams had a lot of fun. That's what I'm here for. The student athletes really just have a lot of fun in those games. Pat, who do you have here?
I also have Georgia here. I'll go ahead and spoil it. I'm sure we would probably do this next week after these games are done. But Georgia is my pick to win the national championship this year. So I'm going with the Dogs to take care of business. again against the Rebels.
Yes. Again,
Again.
dogs. Dogs roll. Yeah, you picking Georgia. I picked earlier in the season Alabama. I thought this team was back. Obviously, we have gotten to the end of the season. I no longer feel that way, but I don't really know who my pick is. I mean, obviously Ohio State losing at the great time, Indiana best team throughout the season, or is it one of these two teams that we're about to talk about in the Pac-South game of the week, Oregon versus Texas Tech? Um, I kind of love this matchup. Like, I don't like the matchup. I don't think it's a good matchup on paper, but like, I kind of love that these two teams are playing each other.
Yeah.
Oregon, in a sense, getting the monkey off the back because they got so much flack and so much hate for the loss last year in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. I guess just being the undefeated team, number one, and then just totally laying an egg. Um, they then play the friendliest rivalry in college football against James Madison. Um, JMU put up a very good second half. They just came out sleeping to start that
Yeah.
game. So Ducks with a good win there, and then obviously Texas Tech being the 4 seed, um, getting the first round bye to then play this game in the Orange Bowl. This Texas Tech defense, I'm sure I've talked about it, but not enough. It's so good. Jacob Rodriguez, I know I've talked about him. Um, Probably the best defensive player in the country this season. Has been an absolute stud for the Red Raiders, just being an anchor on that side of the ball. Texas Tech, no slouch on the offensive side of the ball either. I just feel like when you get down to then who can make the key plays at the key times, I feel like this Texas Tech team um, is just able to answer the call pretty much every time. BYU, not a bad team. We see them play what some could consider the best team in the ACC this season and win that game. And Texas Tech manhandled them both times.
Yeah.
I really like this Red Raider team, and I think that they're playing really good football this time of year. It feels weird to say that Texas Tech is a legit contender for the national championship, but if they are there January 19th, I'm not surprised. I love this team right now. I think they get it done against Oregon, and I think that they could really have a magical season this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. I really have liked this Texas Tech team all year. Their loss to Arizona State was a little bit surprising. I think that was the only game this year where Baron Morton's not really performed super well. I believe he was injured in that game for a portion as well, and the backup had to come in. But regardless, I think Texas Tech is playing really good, clean football. They've got 1,000-yard rusher in Cameron Dickey, who's had a really, really good sophomore season. As you mentioned, that defense anchored by Jake Rodriguez is one of, I'll say, the best in the country. And I think they're going to give Dante Moore a lot of looks that are a little bit disguised and try and make him feel a little bit uncomfortable and lure him into some poor decision making. So, with that being said, good for Oregon for beating James Madison. Kind of, we'll say, quieting the noise a little bit that Dan Lanning can't win big or meaningful football games. But I think that noise is going to start cycling again because you and I are both going with the Red Raiders. Our guns are up. Um, so, yeah, I think it should be an interesting one. I think we've got some really good games ahead of us both today with the ones that are going on. I believe Iowa just punched in another touchdown.
Iowa just kicked off again at 31-17 at the beginning of the fourth.
Yeah. And then Duke is up 14-7 on Arizona State, plus all the other games that we've previewed. So we've got a good stretch of football here. Hoping that these playoff games live up to the hype, that they're all competitive, all entertaining, and that we can see some good football on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a great stretch here, and then obviously next week we'll be back to recap kind of the playoffs, maybe talk a little bit more in depth about our record. Get into that at the end with the national title, what our official record is because of the craziness that is bowl season. But then some exciting news as well as we cap off the end of this episode. Obviously, the podcast is currently here on 626 Productions. That will continue for the time being, but we are launching a PAC-South specific YouTube channel where everything that has been posted prior will be going into the future, plus some kind of like smaller vignette type videos to be expected on that as well. So we are very excited about that in 2026, as well as everything that this podcast and sports has to offer. um, we're looking forward to it. So happy New Year's, everyone. From TJ and Pat, thank you all so much for watching and listening. We will see you all next year.